Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to the council meeting of August 15, 2016. A few housekeeping items. The washrooms are down on your left, and the emergency exits are at the at back doors and I believe behind us. Yeah. Okay. How do I introduce you?
You can just say no when you introduce Mayor Brown.
Now I'm going to introduce Mayor Brown.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Alondra, or your worship. I apologize. So as you can probably tell, we have a Mayor for a Day winner up here today. And I can tell you once again, because I visit a lot of schools, this kid right here sees something else. I don't know if Pauline's here. There she is. We had an opportunity to tour around this morning. We went for lunch, and she actually was one of two winners. She's the middle school winner, and her idea was to make this community a better place by essentially educating people, which is what I try and do all the time. So her and I were on the same wavelength right off the chute. But she's exceptional in thinking, and walking and listening to her today, you would not believe some of the comments. We visited a community group that's built a renovated entire house for two very sick young girls. She got to tour that with us. We welcomed Ian Monholm from his travel across Alberta, running across Alberta, bringing mental health awareness to not only to Airdrie, but to Alberta and Albertans. And you would not believe the commentary that this young lady had for these individuals, and her observations were unbelievable. So I'm really looking forward to watching your work this evening, Your Worship. I have a lot to learn from you. So with that, I will turn it over to you, and we'll begin our meeting. And thank you very much.
Now what?
Sorry, dear. So first up, we have minutes.
Should I just say minutes?
Just a sec. Councillor Head, can we borrow your agenda, please? Thank you. So,
Minutes, item number 4, adoption of Bellick, Councillor Bellick.
yep.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move to adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of July 4th, 2016.
All those in favor?
It's unanimous.
It's unanimous.
Next one.
Minutes 4.1. Acknowledge Councillor Hunter.
I'd actually like to get her on full time, but since I can't do that, let's like to make a motion to adopt the minutes of Airdrie Municipal Library Board of May 31st and Municipal Planning Commission of May 19th, 2016.
All those in favor?
It's unanimous.
It's unanimous.
Make sure. Look that way. Make sure everybody put their hand up. Perfect.
Okay. Minutes of.
So this is the consent agenda.
Okay. So what should I say? Okay.
Yep.
If there are any members of the council that would like to see the of the consent agenda, please move on to the regular agenda. Thank you. Councillor Hunter?
5.3, please.
Councillor Burley?
I'd like to move 5.1, Your Worship.
Okay. Sharon, we're going to put that over under appointments and presentations just before, correct?
Yes, Your Worship.
5.1, 5.3.
Yes,
We're
Your
going to do
Worship.
5.3 first, and then 5.1. Okay, perfect.
And if I could get that you to accept 5.2 on the consent agenda.
Councillor Coulson, please make a motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I could move that we accept item 5.2 for information. Oh, would you like us to move the other two items in that motion as well? And move items 5.1 and 5.3 to, are we doing 6.2? Is that what it would read as, or?
If I may, Your Worship,
Yes.
they would remain as their existing numbers. They would just immediately follow this resolution.
Okay, so moved.
Thank you, Your Worship.
All those in favor?
It's unanimous.
It's unanimous. Who is coming up to present for 5.3? I'd like to welcome Lynn McKenzie
And Stephen Yates.
and Stephen Utes.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. I'm here tonight to provide council with some information with regards to how the City of Airdrie currently deals with nuisance lights. This was a...
Sorry, Lynn.
Oh, just questions?
Just,
Okay.
we're going to make a special one for Tracy, but yeah, just questions for you. Sorry. Tonight, it's a special night. Councillor Hunter, you had a question.
I do. So I would like in the public realm to hear, so this came specifically because of lights shining.
So currently, I can't speak to any individual case, but the land use bylaw does have a section that can be used to deal with that. So a letter would go out to the owner or owners of the property saying that, you know, your lights have caused a disturbance to somebody. We would ask them to shroud or turn it away to stop that from happening. If that didn't happen, then we would issue a stop order, and we could technically, going through the courts, go in and stop it. And it has been used one time before.
Successfully?
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Is there any other questions for Lynn? Thank you, Lynn. Can Tracy please come up to talk about 5.1?
If I may, Your Worship?
Yes, we're going to get a motion to accept.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman.
Your Worship, I'd like to make a motion to accept, please.
All those in favor? It's unanimous.
You're smoking it.
Sharon, if we can dim the lights, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, Mayor Brown, members of council. This was intended to be a presentation. It shouldn't have been on consent agenda. I apologize for that. What I want to go through tonight, you have a report in front of you regarding the approach that we're taking to the CASP justification. And the reason it's in front of you is we have had two proposals come forward, two initial proposals regarding this. So just wanted to give council an overview of how we are going to be approaching that. And I also wanted to use it as an opportunity to explain some of the policy direction and the maps in the city plan. So when we annexed the land initially, it was intended for a 50-year land supply. So to ensure that we actually maintain a 50-year land supply, there were a number of policies put in the Airdrie City Plan around managing growth to ensure that we do that in a fairly thoughtful and deliberate way. And one of those was the notion of a CASP justification report. And the reason for that is in the previous annexation, all the CASP kind of arrived at one time, and the first time council saw it was when a fair bit of work had gone in, and you were faced with looking at 4 or 5 of them that surrounded the whole annexation area. So what we wanted to do in this case is to give you an opportunity to weigh in and have some evaluation about what moves forward in the community before a developer has put a lot of time and effort into it, which makes it very hard to say no at that time. So the justification policy in Policy 2.9 just says where a development proponent is seeking to initiate a CASP, they're going to require a review of a planning and growth management justification report. So that report is done by staff for you. We will attach any material that comes from the development proponent, but we don't anticipate from them too much detail because we don't want them to go kind of down the road of doing a CASP. So what we would do is just do an evaluation of what's in place. And we base that evaluation on Policy 214 in the plan, which goes through a fair bit of criteria on how we sequence the growth. So basically what that framework does and the kind of things that we look at is basically the demand and supply, and we base that on our growth strategy. Serviceability, can we actually bring it online in a cost-effective and efficient manner? Development suitability, in that case we usually look at constraints, whether they're environmental or they're man-made, such as proximity to rail lines, airports, things like that. Environmental impact, in that case we tend to look at the floodway, particularly the Nose Creek corridor. And the fifth that will become extremely important in this deliberation will be strategic considerations. And in that regard, we look at things of, is a proposal moving you closer to achieving your goals and objectives or not? And that can include everything from a strong sustainability component, bringing on non-residential land, or bringing on a needed community amenity. In the future growth area map, this is what currently exists in the Airdrie City Plan. There was an intention to, once we completed the utility master plan, to bring the plan forward again if it needed any amendment, because that was looking at what areas are more cost effective to bring on, are there additional constraints. And one thing I'll just point out on this, we were intending of essentially just looking at the lands adjacent. This one was predicated on the ability to bring in excess servicing capacity because it is at the very north end and would have required considerable expense. As you know, all the servicing comes from the south, so that's what that one was predicated on. There is an over-allocation in land on the non-residential, and that was quite deliberate in both along in the northern end of the Highway 2 corridor and the area in around this industrial area. So this went well beyond the land needs of a 90,000 population, which was the intent of the Airdrie City Plan. And part of that was deliberate to signal mainly to our residential developers to not go there. So it may not come on in the time frame of the plan, but that was intended. So it's essentially operating a bit as a reserve. So in terms of the two proposals that will be coming forward in the fall, there are some significant issues here that require quite a bit of evaluation on the part of staff, but it also requires a political decision on it. There's 2 CASP proposals coming forward. They're based on the ability to access excess servicing capacity. So they've, in total, are looking at 5 quarter sections of land, which is what the request is, and the issue is there's 1.5 quarters, give or take, of service capacity. So it means that someone gains and someone does not. So that's why this will take on a much more interesting evaluation than usual. So the one proposal is for west of 24th lands. There's 3/4 sections along there that's running just north of Yankee Valley Boulevard, adjacent to the Bay Springs community. The second one is to the north, that's Hopewell, Davy Creek lands. While their whole land holdings are these 3/4 sections, what they will be looking at initially and possibly accommodated is equivalent to close to about 1.5 quarter sections. That is just north of the Reunion community. So how this will be approached, we will be reporting back in a separate report on the updated growth projections that was completed by the Dillon study. It updated the 2011 comprehensive growth study. That will just give you some context to look at these in terms of the land demand needs, the population projections, and they've done them for both short-term and long-term. Staff will be completing a readiness to proceed evaluation of the 2 proposals for the short-term servicing. That will go into all those criteria that I listed earlier, particularly around the strategic considerations. Then we'll be reporting to Council on the servicing allocation recommendation that will come forward to you in the fall, and at that time we'll allow both proponents to speak and for us to host a public input session at that time. Staff will make a recommendation and will be seeking input from Council on how to proceed with that decision. So that concludes my presentation, and staff will be back in front of you probably early meeting in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Councillor Chapman?
I'm sorry, Your Worship, I didn't realize my light was on. I guess the one question I have is, Tracy, you had said there's 1.6, we have room for 1.6 for servicing?
It varies depending on the intensity of the eventual land use, but approximately 1.5 quarter sections can be accommodated with the existing capacity without having to do expensive infrastructure extensions from the south.
Okay, so we have one group that has about 1.5, and we have another group that's got 3/4 sections.
That's correct. Now, it doesn't mean that all 3, I mean, technically both have 3/4 sections.
Yeah.
So either or could start with a 1.5 and then do the remainder as servicing proceeds up that corridor.
I'm just looking at the developers for the 3/4. It's 3 different developers. That's, I'm just curious how they'd work that out amongst themselves. But, okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Hunter?
Through the chair, Tracy, can you just speak to, so looking at the west lands, the northernmost parcel between First Avenue and Veterans Boulevard, so I get that these are the folks asking for it, but what does that do to that little piece? Between Veterans and First. So it stops at the top there where Genesis is, but I mean, theoretically, if you can service that, should we not also be able to service that little piece that's right in the corner?
That could be something that could be looked at in the evaluation. That's certainly not something that has come forward, but you're speaking to that triangular piece right at the top end.
Yeah.
That could be something we could look at in the evaluation around just how far the servicing allocation can go and what's feasible. It's limited by the existing servicing connections, so there's a limitation to how far out something can go. So that could certainly be part of that evaluation that staff undertake.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks very much.
Any other questions for Tracy? Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just adding on to Councillor Hunter's statement there with, I do believe that's the Buffalo Rub community there servicing, but I noticed on this forecast there is a community activity center in that little triangle piece as well that's planned at some time. Would that affect the servicing for those sites at all, or because the city's growing, we are going to need something on the west side at some point. Is there servicing availability if we do go forward with a community activity center? A little blue star there.
Through the chair. So that actual location was fairly conceptual, but what it's suggesting is that as we grow west and northwest, because initially the thought process was that we were going to bring on these as well as these two quarter sections at the time we were first bringing the city plan forward, and it made sense to identify that within that area, generally, you're going to need something like that to service that area. So it could move, it could be further south, it could be further north, but it's saying if you're bringing that much development on, there will need to be some thought process around having an activity center. That area was identified mainly because the access in it, it's a critical intersection. It's centrally located relative to those growth nodes, but it could be reconsidered depending on what moves forward. If the notion was that maybe it makes sense to start from the Yankee Valley Boulevard and move up, it may need to be further south. By extension, if you're going north, you may need to move that. So it's just saying within that area, generally, it certainly would make a very nice development in that, just given the interface and the access.
And I guess the question is, would we have the servicing for that community center in either of these plans? We should be able to have the servicing for that?
That is something that will form part of that evaluation of are the developers willing to consider that? And is there servicing capacity to do that? What's the best location? So that would be part of that readiness to proceed evaluation, to look at that very thing of, under those strategic considerations, is there one proposal over another that may bring a larger community benefit?
Perfect, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Mayor Brown?
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate you. So thank you, Council, for letting me indulge Tracy's presentation, because normally consent agenda, we just Q&A. But we wanted to thank you. We know you're heading off to new adventures on the coast. You came here, when I came here, I think we're a month apart. Your work ethic, energy. I love the amount of work that you've done to improve things for our community, not just our residents, but our businesses, and that'll be remembered for a long time after you leave. So I really want to thank you sincerely for your contributions to the city of Airdrie. We're going to miss you. I love people that tell me exactly what they think of me right away, and you were always that person. Stop doing that, dummy. I don't appreciate it very much. But in school board meetings, and I've been able to selfishly use her expertise in a number of different arenas, and that's invaluable for a person in my position. So can't thank you enough. And wish you all the best.
Thanks. Thank you, and if I may, I'd like to thank the council, particularly you, Mayor Brown. You've talked me off the cliff many a time, so thank you.
There's no crying in chambers, Tracy. You have to leave that to me, okay? See, this is what you deal with all the time, Your Worship. I'm turning it back over to you.
Thank you, Tracy. May I please have a motion to accept the information from Councillor Burley?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll make a motion that we accept the report entitled CASP Justification Review Process for Information.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. We're moving on to appointments and presentations. 6.1, I'll ask for information from Deputy Mayor Haig.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to ask Leona Esau to come up, please, along with Jody Mosley, I believe, at this time.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. This evening I have the pleasure of introducing Jody Mosley, Senior Director, Communications and Stakeholder Relations at YYC, along with her partner in crime, Doug Francoeur, Director of Airfield Compliance, also of YYC. They are here tonight at your request to provide an update on YYC operations and an overview of aircraft noise impacts and management. Jody and Doug will also be sharing some very specific information about Airdrie noise concerns. Over to you, Jody.
Thank you, Your Worship, Mayor Brown, and members of Council. Thank you for inviting us here to talk about YYC and give you an overview of all the things that are going on, and of course to talk about aircraft activity and aircraft noise and answer some of your questions as well. So the Calgary Airport Authority is a not-for-profit organization. I always like to highlight this so people understand who we are and how we operate. We operate both YYC Calgary International Airport as well as Springbank Airport under an 80-year lease from the federal government. The not-for-profit piece really just means any excess surplus, once we pay the bills, is reinvested back into the building and into the facility so we can grow and develop the airport. And a perfect example is the terminal I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, where that investment goes into. A few of the stats from 2015. Infrastructure was a very big investment for us in the last few years. It has been since 1992, since we took over the management of the airport. $3.8 billion has been invested into YYC. $470 million of that is this year, and that's focused on the terminal building and getting it ready for opening in October. Through all of the investment, we of course are burdened with federal rent. I never lose the opportunity to talk a little bit about this financial burden for the YYC Airport Authority. For the privilege of managing and developing the airport, we pay the federal government millions of dollars, $521 million since 1992, 37 in 2015 alone, and it continues to be a concern for the airport as we continue to grow and develop, and is a major line item on our balance sheet. Great news from YYC as well. We had 15.5 million passengers travel through the airport last year. That makes us fourth busiest airport. The difference between us and the third busiest airport, which is Montreal, is a little over a couple 100,000 passengers, which is less than a week's passenger numbers for YYC. So considering the difference in the amount of people that live near the airport, YYC is a very busy airport and continues to see a lot of growth. So where are all those millions of passengers going? Domestically, Vancouver and Toronto continue to be our major destinations. U.S., Houston, Las Vegas, as well as internationally, London and Cancun. Some additional highlights. We had another record-breaking year, so the 15.5 million was another record-breaking year. We announced a lot of new services and enhanced services. Of course, WestJet with a number of different locations, but one of the most important announcements for us from WestJet was their new London Gatwick, which actually began in service May of this year, which was a very significant milestone for WestJet, which is our hometown airline, but also for the airport. And Air Canada continues to focus with some new services and enhanced services. We've got some just examples of daily year-round service to Halifax and Nanaimo. Of course, China was a very big announcement for us. We announced it in 2015, and I'm showing you a picture of the aircraft landing for the first time June 30th of this year. China is a major market for Canada and Alberta, and we're very excited to be one of only 2 airports in the country that welcomes Hainan, which is a 5-star airline. A little bit about the airport development program. A lot of activity at YYC if you're traveling in and out of there. The new international terminal is on schedule to open October 31st. It is 5 levels, 2 million square feet, which doubles the current size of the terminal building. We're adding 25 aircraft gates, a new hotel, which will open in September, 2 new common use lounges, and 2 central retail plazas. one of the most important parts of the development program is really our connectivity program. A significant amount of traffic that travels through YYC is actually connecting traffic. With the new terminal, we are expanding the terminal, but we've also expanded our connectivity program, which includes moving sidewalks. In addition to that, we introduced the YYC Link, which is an electric transit system. It's an electric car, and several of them that will be traveling throughout the terminal and moving passengers from one end of the terminal to the other. One of the major highlights for our new facility is the new connections process, which means you don't have to pick up your luggage anymore when you're traveling connecting through YYC, and of course one-stop screening. So that really expedites and ensures that the connections through YYC are some of the most efficient in our country. So I thought I'd show you a couple of pictures of the facility. This is our new check-in hall. You'll see a very different look and feel when you enter the building. This is a very big check-in hall. This is an example of the Link corridor. So the Link is the electric car, which takes up to 10 people at once, and it has its own dedicated lane in the connections corridor as well. Baggage handling system, we have a tray system, which really ensures the quick and efficient and easy tracking of all luggage that travels through YYC. This is a picture of our connections corridor. If you've traveled through, you've probably experienced a little bit of it, but it will travel from one end to the area into the new terminal as well. And a couple of pictures of our retail plaza. There will be a lot of central retail availability, a lot of names that you will see in many large international airports as well, and they're excited to open up and serve Calgary. Of course, our gate positions as well. Last year, we switched concourses and moved what used to be Concourse D and changed it to Concourse A so we could accommodate the new terminal. And that, of course, means that we have some gates and swing gates that will allow us to operate efficiently as well. And the Marriott Hotel. That's something that opens up September of this year before the terminal opens. And we're very excited to have another hotel option at YYC. So a little bit about aircraft noise and impact management. We're very aware that the airport can sometimes impact the public. Noise management is really a community approach. The Airport Authority is one of the different members that manage noise. Transport Canada is, of course, our regulators. NAV Canada are in control of the airspace and airspace design. The air carriers, of course, fly the aircraft, but a really important part of our noise management team is really the communities and community associations. How do we manage noise? We have a number of different tools that we use. The first and foremost is published noise abatement procedures. We use flight tracking systems to understand how the aircraft are operating. We use sound monitoring systems. We have a concern hotline, which allows people to contact us on the phone, as well as website. And then we have the Airport Community Consultative Committee, and that's a really important tool for us. The committee is really made up of all of those partners that I talked about in my first slides, and they of course include the City of Airdrie, City of Calgary, Rocky View, community associations, and the major airlines as well as NAV Canada and Transport Canada. And it really allows us to collectively approach noise issues as a team and look at options and availability. A couple of things I'll highlight. We at YYC have some of the best air access and the best air service in the country. We are well positioned to grow for the very long term, and with the expansion of the terminal building, we will continue to grow in our location for many, many years to come. And that's part, thankfully, as well to something that we have in place that's unique to Alberta, which is called the Airport Vicinity Protection Area, an act that's been in place since 1979. It's a land development tool, and it ensures that the airport is protected as the people are around it, allowing the airport to grow, but more importantly, for the city to grow around us. But of course, we are an urban airport, and that means that we are very aware that we do impact the communities with arriving and departing airplanes. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Doug to talk a little bit about how we operate the airfield.
So thank you very much, Your Worship and Council. If you're familiar with an aerodrome, the aircraft always arrive and take off into wind, and the wind is the most prevalent determination of which direction the aircraft will flow. We have the two parallel runways. The one on the east was completed in 2014, and the two intersecting runways predominantly used for crosswind operations or when the winds are coming out of the west. But we like to stay on the parallels as much as practical. And we do try and fly and depart the runway 35s, and we're in close coordination with the control tower and NAV Canada, so that we favor the use of runway 35s for departures and arrivals versus the 17s, and only use the 17s when we have to. Sorry. We have a number of aircraft arriving and departing from the Calgary airport, specifically a large portion, almost 30%, are 737 traffic, similar to the WestJet aircraft that are used. 20% there being the Dash 8s and Q400s, turboprop size aircraft. Then we get into some of the smaller percentages with the smaller jets, the CRJs, the Embraers, the Airbus aircraft, and a very small percentage being the turboprops, and even smaller, the larger wide-body carriers that now WestJet has introduced the 767s and some of the 747s predominantly for cargo activities. A new introduction last year was the required navigational procedures called RNP. RNP is an evolution of GPS technology. Now the airlines are introducing that technology to be able to receive the signals into the cockpits and be able to fly very precise flight paths. So these RNP procedures were just introduced this spring for the arrival procedures only. It was a very rigorous consultation process. We were in the community in Airdrie here doing the consultation, and they allow the appropriately equipped aircraft to fly shorter, reduced power with constant descent approach into the airport, reducing noise and greenhouse gas emissions. Like I said, the RMP is a GPS technology, and the biggest benefit there is a continuous descent arrival. Previously, with the aircraft shown on the orange flight path, you would quite often see vectors where the aircraft would have to apply thrust, adding more noise, adding more greenhouse gas emissions, level off their descent, until they reach the appropriate procedures, or NAV Canada instructed them to fly lower. With the new RNPs, they're able to go right to idle power and continuous descent all the way down, so reduced power, reduced noise, and reduced emissions. Specifically for Airdrie, there are a number of flight paths, and we took a random sampling. This was late June, I believe, so these are departure flight paths only, shown in the blue tracks. You'll see that departing from YYC on the two parallel runways, that most of the aircraft will depart and turn once upon reaching 6,500 feet in elevation above sea level. So if the airport is approximately 3,600 feet above sea level, the aircraft are turning between 5,000 and 6,000 feet, above sea level, and moving away from Airdrie prior to overflying Airdrie. You do see some of the northern bound flight tracks that are overflying Airdrie if they're heading that direction, but because most of our destinations are either to the south or easterly or westerly, they're turning towards their destinations. And for airspace sorting procedures, we do use the east runway for eastbound departures and the west runway for westbound departures, similarly with the arrivals. But most of the aircraft we look at are all well above 5,000 to 6,000 feet above sea level over top of Airdrie, so lots of altitude and not usually as big an impact for departures as it is for the arrivals. For the arrival side, there's two dedicated corridors. They're flying the instrument landing system, the ILS. You can see that their flight tracks are very lined up with the extended runway center lines. And to your lower left and lower right, you'll just see a couple more thick lines, or those actually aren't thick lines, but they're introduced the RNP flight tracks that are flown south of Airdrie, and those are the radius turns that are overflying non-populated areas and into the Calgary airport without having to fly the extended long ILS center lines that we've seen previously. For those aircraft that do overfly Airdrie, the average elevation is about 1,500 to 3,000 feet above ground level. Back to Jody.
So a little bit about noise-specific statistics for the Airdrie area, as well as Calgary. Our noise concerns are down about 30% from 2014. The pie on the left shows a little bit about, which is a very common occurrence, about the amount of calls that we get per caller. 68% of our calls actually come from two people, and it's almost 7,000 calls in 2015 alone. we do see that as a trend, and as a trend, I think, across the country, small groups of people who call many, many times, and that's not unique to Calgary itself. But our concerns are down from 2014. As you can see, in 2015, we had about 1,100 concerns come in. Airdrie itself, for 28, accounted for 80 concerns from 73 people. So that's the numbers that we're experiencing in the Airdrie area. We thought we'd have a look a little bit at the 2016 numbers. As you can see, we're averaging from around 2 to upwards 11 people that have called us from 10 to 23 times. Again, that trend is sometimes we see people calling multiple times, sometimes with multiple questions, sometimes just to reinforce the fact that they're unhappy with an operation. And despite the statistics, we are listening to stakeholders. We are out in the community, and we are working with the industry to investigate options. The airport, of course, is a single point of contact, and it's a challenging role. We don't design airspace, fly airplanes, but we are that point of contact, doing our best to answer the questions of the public and working as a liaison with a number of different agencies with competing interests to try and find the best solutions to allow for airlines to operate and be successful in a city, to minimize any of the impact as a result of that as well. So as a community, with the Airport Community Consultative Committee and other outlets, we do work about understanding the impacts of those community impacts as a community group, which includes industry. So we continue to work towards that. With that, in closing, I would like to just reinforce the economic impact of YYC. There's 24,000 on-airport jobs, 48,000 jobs that are created in the region. This week, we're actually hosting a job fair in which we and our partners that are opening up in the terminal are hiring hundreds of people. We've had a number of different good news announcements of people focusing on their development and growth directly at YYC because of opportunity there as well. And we see us as a catalyst for the continued health and well-being of the city as well as our province. But we take that responsibility very seriously, as much as we do the responsibility of us working with the community that surrounds us to ensure that while we grow and develop, we're working with the community that's impacted by noise to look at any of those options that are available to minimize that impact. And with that, I'll close, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Jody. And I have a question. What exactly does YYC stand for?
YYC is actually an airport code. So it was given to us many, many decades ago. It doesn't really have, it's not an acronym with a, is it an acronym, Doug? No, it's just an airport code that's a designator for the airport.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chapman?
Thank you. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Doug. As you know, I'm sort of an aviation fan. So how many of the major airlines now are using the RMP? Like, are all of WestJet's airplanes available, Air Canada's? Or?
Yeah, all of the WestJet 737s are using it now, but they can only use it when it's allocated. About 10% of the time is the use we're seeing since the introduction. All of the Encore aircraft are capable of flying it. It's just a matter of getting their pilots trained. And some of the newer Air Canada fleet, like the 787s and the Embraers, again, based on pilot qualifications and the introduction of new technology, but mostly the newer type aircraft, yes.
So the airlines are actively working to train their pilots in the use of this, though?
Yes, we're going to see much more proliferation and use of RNP going forward.
Perfect. The next question I have, you're saying over Airdrie, they're usually 1,500 to 3,000 feet AGL, above ground level. How much is that is weather dependent? The other day we had some nasty cells to the west. And I noticed it looked like they were coming in fairly low. So is there weather dependency on where they're coming in?
Absolutely. Certainly when we get into thunderstorms that we've been having almost every evening for the past 4 months, there is a change in flight patterns based on the activity. The aircraft don't like to be flying through thunderstorms, so they will move them around to accommodate them. And quite often we can change runways and configuration numerous times throughout the evening to accommodate the thunderstorms, absolutely.
And quite often, if I'm not mistaken, in a thunderstorm, in inclement weather, they're actually coming in under power a little bit more. That aircraft is a little bit more stable, is it not?
If required because of the winds, they will absolutely add speed and potentially altitude to be a little bit more stable, yes.
So some of this noise is weather-related, not just generally, they have to do it.
There is
to
that
fly
potential,
safely.
yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Hunter?
Through the chair, first, thank you for coming. I was hoping we would have this after the public question period, because I know there are a couple of people here that have some questions directly related to your report tonight. Thank you for that. So when you say your concerns are down, does that mean that you've actually addressed concerns, or, because I know in some cases people quit calling because I can't give them the answers that they want to hear. So there's a difference between concerns are down and calls are down. How do you differentiate, and how do you say that the concerns are down? What is that based on?
The amount of call volume that we're receiving is down.
Right.
I would say, and we just classify it as a concern versus a complaint, because they're not all complaints.
Okay.
Some of them are questions about aircraft operations. Some of them are just inquiries about what's going on, asking questions. So that's why we call them concerns. So I would say our call volume is down 30%.
So, and through the chair, I guess one of the ones I hear constantly is that when you say it's 1,500 to 3,000 feet that you're coming in or leaving at and those kind of things, I guess I get a sense from some of the people in the community, a sense of disbelief. They seem to think that they're flying substantially lower than that 1,500-foot ceiling, and I'm saying lots of heads, or a few heads nodding in the audience. So what would be the circumstances where we did hear that low cloud ceiling, weather fronts, et cetera, could do that. But I know myself watching, I was watching for the last couple of days where they were coming, and where they decide to turn and bank, it seems to me more frequently that they're turning right in the middle of the city as opposed to on the north end or the south end. And so I'm not sure why they would all of a sudden start swinging, heading north, and then all of a sudden swing over on. And I've flown in a couple of times, and I'm getting real good at spotting the landmarks, and Cross Iron Mills is a good one and things like that as to where we're making our turns. What would indicate that they would, I guess what would the rationale be that you would make your turns right over the highest residential areas in the city?
So you're speaking to the arrivals specifically in that scenario that they're turning for the landing on these runway 17s. There's quite a bit of variables into that, specifically the amount of volume that is coming into the system. So if there's very few aircraft in the system, they'll be able to turn very short final. But because of the sequencing aspect, NAV Canada and the control tower are required to space them out at 6 mile spacing, and we see them stack up and sometimes between 15 and 20 miles back on final approach. So that it's really that spacing, so different times of the day where we see more arrivals occurring, the sequencing and spacing will be staggered out up to 20 miles occasionally, but usually between the 10 and 15 mile marker points for the turn to final for the spacing and sequencing for the aircraft in front of them.
Okay, so through the chair, I understand you guys don't get to make the rules, adjust the rules, or just deal with all of the things that come into you. What would sort of the process be, or because it just would seem to me that regardless of the planes coming or going, turning, never mind a noise standpoint, aircraft, the more frequent aircraft are making turns in the middle of a big city, and I guess they have to fly through Calgary, and I used to watch them coming in at a bit of an angle before they did the new runways and things like that. But what would make a change where it would not be doing, a massive amount of those turns right in what I would consider the core of the city?
So the RNP procedures is one specific procedure where we're trying to increase the use of it by the airlines, where those radius turns are directly south of Airdrie and not impacting the residences.
Right. So can we kind of get a sense of when would you consider it substantially complete that most of the airlines and I get that the limitations are depending on the type of aircraft, but the ones that could use this, is there kind of a timeline as to when we could see that they will be using that and maybe start seeing a lot less of this over the
you can be sure because of the, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you can be sure because of the airlines are seeing increased fuel burn and fuel savings directly to their bottom dollar, they're looking to migrate towards RMP procedures as quickly as possible as well. WestJet has been a very big advocate of the RMP procedures and the adoption in Canada, and they're pushing as often as they can to come in and use those RMP procedures. So as we see today, it's probably 10%. We'll see that migrate over the next couple of years. I don't know if we'll ever see a full adoption in the near term, because more and more of the aircraft will have to become adopted. So until we see 100% adoption rate before we can see all the aircraft being able to use them.
So say over the next 5 years, would we anticipate that we'd be at 40%, 50%?
That's, we'd be guessing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Hank?
Thank you, Your Worship. Most of my questions have been answered in terms of implementation and schedules. Just wanted to also add, we do recognize a lot of our residents, in fact, do work at the airport in various roles, and we do use it extensively as well too, and appreciate the job creation that's coming up as well too. Just in terms of the RNP routes, will any of those routes, I saw, the one on the west side, if you're using the east runway, would the RNP route fly over Airdrie at all? So like if everything goes to RNP down the road, which is I think most of us hope for, would Airdrie be affected in any way?
Yeah, there is a lot of variability in the flight tracks, but there are RMP routes that are designed for the straight-in approach as well. So if the aircraft are arriving from northern destinations, for example, they would be flying straight in and can pick up those RMP procedures to the north and overfly Airdrie on the extended center lines as well. But again, there's a lot of variability in the adoption rate and how soon we'll see those come on board.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mayor Brown?
Thank you. Hi, Jody. Hi, Doug. Thanks for coming. A couple of questions. So we have sound attenuation equipment. There was some at Walmart, I think, a couple of years ago. Just wondering if anything has been shifted to the east side, because probably I get most of my complaints from the people on the east side. I am actually right in that red line in Stonegate, so I do have a lot of planes overhead. But maybe I'm just getting used to it. I'm not quite sure yet. But if you could answer that question, that would be great.
Yeah, we do have a virtual noise monitor in the Walmart area, but through the Airport Community Consultative Committee, I think that we could definitely investigate looking at different locations. We are, at the moment, reevaluating all our noise monitors throughout the city. So it's a program we're going through this year to reevaluate their location. It would be great to add Airdrie for a second location. So we'll definitely look at that.
Okay, so and just Tracy, we have, who is Phyllis, our contact on that board? Oh, Leona, you are? No? Oh, excellent. Sorry to not recognize that. Secondly are you surprised about the increase in business with the current economy the way it is, and what are you forecasting for next year? And to follow that, what do you anticipate? I don't know how many stalls you have now for airplanes, but if you're adding 25 new spots, what kind of volume increases are we to expect over our community? Is it 50% more air traffic? What are you foreseeing in the future?
So to answer your first question, I think that we have always weathered some of the economic challenges as a province fairly well, and I think this year, and this particular economic challenge is no different. YYC's the only airport, I think, in the province that's still seeing positive passenger growth. It's not big, but 1.3% is fantastic for an economy that's under some duress that it is now. We've also seen a lot of businesses that focus their business at the airport itself because of the logistics of it and the growth opportunity, as well as all the other businesses that are there. So it really, truly is a catalyst for our city as well as our province, and we'll continue to focus on making sure that we are meeting the needs of the businesses, because I think that's really driving the economy here. In regards to the 25 aircraft gates, nothing changes overnight at YYC. Our traffic volumes really are still the same, but they will grow over time. some of the aircraft that we're welcoming at the airport are the 787s. It's perfect aircraft for our market, and that some of the quietest aircraft, as well as some of the most fuel-efficient aircraft as well. We aren't likely to see anything too big too soon, but we are moving towards more of a prominent 787 market, which is most of our main lines, but you will still see that variance of aircraft because of the connectivity of YYC. That means the smaller markets feed our larger aircraft, and so you'll see some more of that, but most of the airlines really efficiently operate full planes and fewer of them, and they continue to look at that. But you know, the aircraft is definitely getting busier. So the airport is getting busier, and which is why our relationship in working with the community is more important as we go forward.
So is the 787 more accommodating to that technology? Will they, sorry Doug, I'm not sure on that type of aircraft.
No, the new 787 that was recently introduced in the last 2 to 3 years by Boeing using new technology engines, and both Air Canada and WestJet are looking at introducing the new 737 MAX in the next 5 years. And again, those aircraft will be replacing the older fleet of Boeing 737, 700s, 800s, and the Airbus fleet with Air Canada. So we will see the aircraft migrating toward more fuel-efficient, quieter engines in the near future.
Okay, and I guess lastly, there are no other questions. Would you guys, I know I can see a couple of people that have here for specifically to talk to you. Would you mind hanging out in the lobby and answering a few questions before you head out for the evening?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be greatly appreciated. So if anybody's here to ask any direct questions, they've kindly agreed to stick around and answer those questions. With that, sincere thanks for coming in. Appreciate all the information, and yeah, let's hope more of these planes get more of this technology upgrades and have less of an impact, not only on Airdrie, but on everybody else that's in that flight path. So thanks very much for coming, and thank you, Leona.
Deputy Mayor Haig.
Thank you, Worship. So then, of course, I think with having Leona here with us, as we continue to get concerns, she can carry those forward as a representative on the board. So that's good to hear, and possibly have them back again if we have more questions. So I would move at this time, Your Worship, that we accept the presentation and report for information.
All those in favor? It's unanimous.
We should bring YYC here more often, Sharon. We cleared the entire room when they left the office. Never seen anything like this, a mass exodus.
Item number 7, public question period. I'd like to invite the members of the public to ask any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, and you're doing a great job. We need you as mayor. Sorry, Mayor Brown.
Thank you.
I would like to ask a question directly related to the previous report on YYC. There were a number of errors that were presented by, I believe, Doug. He kept stating with respect to sea level, when in actual fact, according to NAV Canada and the airport control, the concerns line, they state that it's actually above ground level, with ground level reference point being the airport. So the 1,500 to 2,300 feet above ground level is actually above the Calgary airport. So west of Airdrie, the annexed area is about 1,000 feet to 1,200 feet higher than the Calgary airport. So that means that in fact the airplanes, the commercial airlines, and the cargo airlines are also flying at about 500 feet above the residents' houses. And that goes on from 4:30 in the morning until 6 at night, or it can be 4:30 in the morning until, who knows, 1, 2, 3 in the morning. It just never stops at 500 feet, and I don't think that's fair. And that's my main concern, is that the report has been given, and it's been given with erroneous data. Rural residents aren't being taken into consideration for this, and continually the planes in clear weather are flying over the rural areas at low altitude and then coming back up to maintain the altitude that they're supposed to keep over Airdrie. But my main concern comes down to enforcement and control. Are the approaches visual approaches or are they controlled approaches? Nobody seems to know. And the legislation, the federal legislation, there's lots of rules to be enforced, but there's no way to enforce them and no penalty to be given for lack of respecting the regulations. Those are my main concerns with the report. And my last question posed to Council, I would like to see a review done on the Airdrie Emergency Management Program, because right now we have basically no preventative measures, no preparedness, no response. We only have recovery. And the recovery only involves municipal development officers. And they take such a long time to get anything done. I'd like a review of this program done immediately and implement a phone tree, if you will, so that when an emergency does happen and someone reports it, that the city actually takes action. They understand that they've taken preventative measures, they know how to mitigate, and they're prepared to respond. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to ask a question?
The Honorable Mayor for the day, Madam Solis. Did I get the name right?
It's Landeros.
Okay.
Close.
Congratulations on your position.
Thank
Your
you.
Worship, Mayor Brown, councillors, city staff, media, members of the public. I just permission, one of these documents is for the mayor and one's for Mr. Schultz.
Would you mind giving me your name and where you live?
Sorry. Oh, yes. My name is Richard Herdman. I live at 1840 Meadowbrook Drive in the proud city of Airdrie, Alberta. The highest elevation city in Canada, by the way, if we all didn't know it. Second highest. Your Worship, I have a very, very serious question to ask, and I delivered a document to the mayor, Mr. Schultz. You've probably never seen a document like that, but it's a part of your education being the mayor. And the preamble, I'm going to state a preamble so council and the public can understand where I'm at before I deliver my question. The city owns a number of off-leash dog parks, and they have fences on them and they have gates. And when the public enters those dog parks, there's a perception. There might not be a legal position from the city, but there's a perception that all of those dogs, 100% of those dogs, are not going to end up on the Deerfoot Expressway or a highway. And that's very important, because if one of those dogs ends up on the highway and a member of the public swerves and they kill themselves, that is a big problem. Okay, and I'm not sure if the city or the councillors knew the problems they would get into when they put those off-leash dog parks in, but specifically that is the situation. Now, what flows from that, out of the preamble, is there is a city bylaw, section 788, and it's bylaw 788, and it's section 1001. Now, council is part of the enforcement, it's part of the interpretation, and it's part of everything around every bylaw. Now, you may not have read that bylaw. I only read it recently. It says this: no corporation shall cause a gate to be left open and negligently and willfully cause a dog to go at large. Now, there's a comparable bylaw that says if the members of the public are caught with their dogs running at large, the owner can be issued a ticket. So my question that flows from that is, what is the city's responsibility, policies and procedures, in maintaining mission-critical maintenance on gates and fences? I'm not talking months later. I'm not talking days later. I'm talking in real time, just like a fire. Policies and procedures to maintain those gates. The second is, what is the liability that flows from that situation? And the third is, and council may not be aware of this, when somebody is charged because their dog gets out and those gates are down, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms comes into play, which states unreasonable search and seizure and charges. Because now the criminal code comes into play because the defense is a reasonable excuse. Now, those are my questions. The documents that I just passed to His Worship and Mr. Schultz state that both those company officers now have to appear for trial in Airdrie Provincial Court at 9:30 on 13th of September. And I'm going to ask these two questions of those two officers, and they can deliver their answer to the judge. And this is a very, very serious matter, Your Worship, and it shouldn't have got to this point. It should not have got to this point. So that's all I'm going to say about this matter right here.
Thank you.
So this is the first I've been made aware of this, and I apologize. I had Paul's in front of me, so I thought he had to go, but my name is on here as well. So I'm not familiar off the cuff with that bylaw that you just read for it. So if you wouldn't mind, can I get a day to look at it and give you a shout tomorrow? Yeah, because I obviously it's a concern for you. It should be a concern for us, but I can't address it at this moment in time. So if you don't mind, I'll just take a moment tomorrow at some point, and I'll give you a holler before the end of the day.
Yeah, Your Worship, the point of delivering that document to you is somewhat it's not humorous, but it could be, because the last time I think
and we are not taking it as such. I promise you, taking this very seriously. So I will look into it immediately.
And you know, the last time perhaps a public official had to appear like this was the Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Chrétien, had to appear, and he brought his golf balls in. So. I hope that the matter can be explained sort of that way to the court, and it may not even end up in the court. So I hope it doesn't end up in the court.
Okay, I'll look forward to discussing with you further tomorrow. Thanks, Mr. Herdman.
Anyone else wanting to present? Please come up now. I hereby close the public question period. Now moving on to item number 8, public hearing. Okay. So the public hearing process is open to the public. Open the public hearing. There'll be a presentation by staff. There's a ton of questions from council. You're going to hear from those in favor. And I will ask 3 times. You are going to hear from those against. And I will ask 3 times as well. Also, hear any final questions or from council or the public. And then we will close the public hearing. Can staff please come forward to speak to 8.1? Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. As stated, I would like to set the context for a public hearing for Bylaw B35, 2016. This bylaw is with respect to a proposed road closure between the community of Kings Heights, shown in this area here, and the future community of Lanark Lake Stage 1, this area here. And the area of the proposed closure is approximately in the area of this red line on screen. The purpose of the closure was to facilitate something that Council had adopted as part of Bylaw B14 2015, which was an amendment to the Kings Heights Neighborhood Structure Plan. The purpose of that amendment with the road closure was to allow semi-detached dwellings to be located at a standard lot depth along a future road of Highview Street. And so it's a little bit difficult to see on screen here, but there's a very narrow portion that I'm putting the mouse over here that would be forming part of the future lot that was actually part of the road closure area. In order to make the lots the right depth, we needed to close the road, and that was adopted as part of the neighborhood structure plan. Oops. Now, as Council may recall, as part of that evaluation of the Kings Heights Neighborhood Structure Plan amendments in 2015, there was included a bylaw to close the road, Bylaw B33 2015, which is shown on the left here. And the area of the proposed closure was 0.2 of a hectare or half an acre, the area outlined in red. What has happened is that this bylaw has been taken forward to the Land Titles Office for registration, and unfortunately the Land Titles Office has rejected that because the figure included in the bylaw was not clear enough for their standards. So the developer is proposing an updated survey plan for it to be included as an amendment to the original bylaw. So Bylaw B35 2015 is actually amending the original bylaw, Bylaw B33 2015, to provide the exact same road closure area, the exact same width. It is simply indicating on it how wide the road closure is and how long it is and what the radii are at each end of the bylaw, or the road closure area. With that, Your Worship, members of Council, I'm going to conclude my presentation, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, students. Are there any questions from Council? There being none, I'm going to open the public hearing for bylaw number B, B35, 2016. Being a bylaw to amend bylaw number B33, 2015. A bylaw intended to facilitate a partial closure of a road allowance between the communities of Kings Heights. Is there anyone here to speak for that bylaw? Is there anyone here to speak for that bylaw? For the second time, is there anyone here to speak for the bylaw? For the third and final time, is there anyone here to speak for the bylaw? There being none, is there anyone here to speak against the bylaw? For the second time, is there anyone here speaking against the bylaw? For third and final time, is there anyone here speaking against that bylaw? No? Okay. And now I'll turn it back over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may, the presentation does have the alternatives and the recommendation included in it. Thank you. So Council has three alternatives. The alternative would be to give 3 readings to Bylaw B35, 2016, which would amend Bylaw B33, 2015 in the manner that I described. Council may table the bylaw, or Council may defeat the bylaw during the readings. Administration recommends alternative 1 to give 3 readings, the reason being that this is the exact same intent as the original bylaw, but should allow the road closure area to be registered at the Land Titles Office.
And now I'm going to close the bylaw for the public hearing, for bylaw number B35, 2016, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number B33, 2015. Councillor Chapman?
Your Worship, I'd like to move first reading of bylaw B35, 2015. 16, sorry.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. Councillor Coulson?
Second reading of bylaw B35, 2016.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. Councillor Bellick, sorry.
Permission for third, Your Worship.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. And finally, Councillor Burley.
Thank you, Worship. Motion for third and final reading of bylaw B35, 2016.
All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Excellent. Okay, now we're moving on to item number 10. Public hearings continued.
Now we're moving on to item number 10, public hearing continued. And now can I please have Stephen come forward on regards to bylaw number 39, 2016. B39, sorry.
And the public hearing process you explained previously is enforced. But that's okay, you don't have to say that.
Thank you again, Your Worship and members of Council. The next item to bring for you is bylaw B39, 2016, public hearing. This is a bylaw respecting a portion of Lot 7, Block 2, Plan 881-0225. The purpose of the bylaw is to do two things. One, it is to remove the municipal reserve designation from that portion of land, and two, it is to change the land use designation for that portion of land. So to give some context here, this is Tower Lane Drive, from which I'm moving the cursor here north-south, and the intersection with Railway Avenue southwest. And the portion in consideration this evening is just that part between approximately what would be the southern boundary of Railway Avenue, heading down towards approximately where there is a small little stormwater overflow towards the end of the Tower Lane portion here, adjacent to the existing privately owned parcel of land. The other part of the bylaw, as I mentioned a moment ago, is to change the land use designation. Currently, that narrow strip, and it is approximately 4.1 meters wide, has a designation of P1, which is the Public Open Space District. The second intent of this bylaw would be to change that district if Council were willing to remove the MR designation from P1, because it would no longer be public open space, but to consolidate it with the existing land use designation of the adjacent parcel, which is M3, which is the new downtown core mixed-use district under the new land use bylaw. To give a little bit of a visual context for the parcel in question here, I've highlighted on a street view what the area looks like. It is a very narrow strip, approximately from here to here, and kind of as the perspective continues on, of approximately 4.1 meters between the Tower Lane Road right-of-way and the existing adjacent parcel next to the railway tracks, which are shown on screen here. In terms of the aerial context, this is the adjacent privately held parcel. The part of the rationale for wanting to consider removing the MR designation this evening and allowing consolidation is that this would be the existing potential access off Railway Avenue. It is preferable to have adjacent access along Tower Lane Drive and have potentially in the future up to a four-way intersection at the intersection of Tower Lane Drive and Railway Avenue, and to provide access opportunities along Tower Lane Drive. When staff reviewed the proposed MR designation removal and the change in the land use district, we looked at the Airdrie 1 sustainability plan, where it noted that consolidation for development access would potentially enhance the fiscal sustainability of Airdrie because it would allow the adjacent parcel to be better developed. The municipal development plan, the Airdrie City Plan, supports the concept of mixed-use land uses and compact urban form throughout the community, but certainly in the downtown. When we looked at the downtown plan, this is a narrow municipal reserve parcel that is not identified in the downtown plan for any future pathway link. There are other pathway links in the area, but not along this north-south corridor. And it also indicates in the downtown plan that the city should actively pursue opportunities to relocate the industrial uses along the railway lands and create uses on those parcels that are compatible with the downtown. And certainly the consolidation of this parcel with the adjacent parcel would mean an opportunity to have a larger development parcel that could be developed more efficiently and have, as I've mentioned a moment ago, better access. This bylaw was taken to Municipal Planning Commission from the perspective of the potential MR designation removal and also the change in land use district. There was unanimous support from Municipal Planning Commission to give 3 readings of this bylaw. With that, Your Worship and members of council, I'm going to conclude my presentation, and I welcome any questions of council prior to the public hearing presentations.
Any questions of council? There being none, I'm going to open the public hearing for bylaw number B39 2016. Anyone who would like to speak in favor of this bylaw?
Your Worship, welcome to the Chair, Council, members of the public, city managers. I'm going to be back in this chair to speak against the bylaw because there's two positions. In an open debate, you have to take one side and take the other side. I went down and I toured that piece of property that's located right across from the Tower Lane Mall Apartments. Is it possible to have the aerial of that piece put up? Looking straight down. Right now, that piece of property that's labeled M3, if we go to the left and we see the stormwater pit there, and we go right across from there, the city plan calls for all of that property to be developed into either industrial land or shops. And M3, if it's developed into industrial land or offices, my proposal is to take the property to the left, which fronts onto Sobeys, and the piece that's right across there that used to be the auto wrecker, to make that into a downtown waterfowl park, a natural environment area for all the citizens of Airdrie. Now, that would be a great plan if M3 is developed in conjunction with those two other parcels across Railway Avenue. That's where I would support that plan. But I think M3 is being loaded from open public space to go into the city's MPC plan to develop those two properties, fronting to the right and fronting to the left. So I'm in favor of M3 being developed and being removed from public space, but only if we develop those two parcels to the north and make a downtown waterfowl park for all the residents, because the city's density is going way, way up, and we're going to be impact on 100,000 people. And we have to remember that Nose Creek Park was designed for a population of maybe 20,000 people. But if we're just going to pretend that that's the only green space in the city without high density, with people being able to walk to public green space, we've left something out of the city plan. So I'm speaking for M3 being developed in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you. And for a second time, is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of bylaw number B39, 2016? For the third and final time, is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of the bylaw number B39, 2016? Okay, is there anyone who would like to speak against bylaw number B39, 2016?
Your Worship, Mr. Herbman, again speaking about bylaw 39/216. I'd wish, could you put that plan back up, please? M3 is currently zoned as open public space, and this hearing is supposed to be to decide if the zoning is going to go ahead. So I took a public tour of that, and they already have a for sale sign up. And I took some videos and was going to put them up on YouTube. But how can a public meeting like this go forward to sell the land and change the zoning and put the sign up and say it's already for sale? So as legally, currently right now, that land is municipal reserve and open space. But I went to that corner of Railway Avenue, and there's a for sale sign, and the pretense is it's owned by Remax. And I think we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't jump the gun. Because what council is saying, we've already made the decision at the Municipal Planning Commission level. So I reject this proposal of removing open green space from any municipal reserve. When I was 15 years old in Lambeth, Ontario, just outside of London, they tried to do that with a public park. And I was the only one that showed up at a public meeting like this because that's what the zoning bylaws called for. So that piece of property that's currently there, it hasn't been maintained as a municipal reserve. There's junk on it. There's you can't walk on it. It's a pathetic eyesore. So that piece of M3 property could be developed into a beautiful park for the people in that downtown core, even though it is along railway lands. So that's my position.
Mr. Erdman, sorry, just so you are looking at the strip of green to the right, correct? We're not talking about the red line there. We're talking about the strip of MR to the right.
Yeah.
Not the red piece. That's already owned by somebody else. That's not municipal reserve.
So which is the piece then that's for sale?
It's the one with the arrow at the top where the yellow is.
Yes.
Look straight down. That little narrow green strip right there. That's what we're discussing right now.
That little green strip right there.
Yes.
That impacts onto M3.
Yes, that's correct.
So there's no way that city could use its position to purchase M3 and develop that into a park. That's not going to happen, is it?
It's certainly not in the plan, no.
It's not in the plan?
No.
You know, when you go down there and tour that area and look at that for sale sign, and there's no way the public can say that there's a piece of municipal reserve land in there. I read this bylaw in the newspaper and I shot down there and I thought, wow, what's going on here? But now you just got a little piece of land there to run a lawnmower down. So I definitely have to take the position, whether or not council agrees with me or not, that should stay there. The city should plant some big tall oak trees. They take 250 years to grow. The acorn takes 75 years to develop. A taproot goes down 350 feet, and then council can be pushing up roots. Definitely got to keep that land. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And for the third and final time, is there anyone who would like to speak against bylaw number B39, 2016?
Steve, sorry, can you turn your mic on so everybody can hear you at home? Thanks.
There we go. Greetings, my worship and Mayor Brown, Council. My name is Steve Bodner. I live at 132 Ridgegate Way in Airdrie. It's just south of the land we're speaking of. And I was in talking to Stephen earlier today, and I just came across this yesterday, actually. In 2011, the property owners came to council and they wanted to purchase that right-of-way of land and then south. I don't know if Steve can enlarge that a little for us. The developer wanted to purchase the green space all the way from Railway Street to Ridgegate Way, basically, okay? It's quite a substantial amount of land, and it's directly across from my house, okay? I know we're not talking about that now, but then at that time I was opposed to the purchase of that land. It came to me as if it was just a land grab to, get a bigger building type thing on it, okay? I commend this gentleman here about the green space, because that is my major concern. I've been there for 18 years, and it's been a green space all that time, and I just wanted on record that I am opposed to the green space being developed, okay? That said, okay, the strip of land that is alongside Tower Lane Road. I did say at that meeting we had in 2011 that I would be in favor of that stretch of land. I understand that, he's boxed in there. It'd be better access for him and everything. But I was for that piece of land to be, if he was able to purchase that land, leaving the south of that property, leaving that alone, okay? And I just want that on record that.
Steve, sorry, just because not every member of council was here in 2011, Stephen Utes, can you just point to the area that Steve's talking about, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm doing my best. Unfortunately, I can't zoom out on this particular photograph. I could, for example, try and use our maps, but essentially that piece of land that Mr. Bodner is referring to starts here and will continue down. It continues down a fair ways, tapers, and then widens back out towards this area here. There's a bit of a stormwater runover in this area here.
I don't know if you can get this up on the screen or not, Stephen. That might show a little bit extra. I know you had it blowing up there a little while ago. Now, we might be able to see it on, oh, no, you can't see it on the color one there, right? Yeah. But Stephen also said that there is no pathways down there. That is.
You sat in the one chair where I'm going to need to ask you to slide
Oh,
over.
geez, eh? I've always been told to get the hell out of the way, so hey, no difference here.
Oh, shoot.
Sorry.
That's no problem. No problem at all.
Now, there we go. Yep.
Where's my Zoom? Do you have the Zoom there, Carrie? Because it looks like it's, oh, that
Yeah,
probably
no,
gives you
that's,
everything you need.
yeah, no, that's good.
Okay, cool.
That's good. Okay, so the section of land in question is at the top there, where it's dark, MR proposal there, okay, at like the lower part. That is the land that I'm protesting that, and I know it's not on the agenda here today, it's just that little strip of land up alongside. I'm aware of that, okay? But like I say, in 2011, there was a proposal to purchase all that land for development, and I'm totally against that, okay? I commend this other gentleman for keeping the parks. That was my concern, okay? That green space actually connects to Nose Creek Park, okay? If you walk that fence, it's so you're wrong when you say that there's no pathways directly there type thing, eh? And, even that space, anyway, long story short, I'm not opposed to the northern part strip of land. I think it's 4 meters or something like this. But the lower section of land, I think it would be wrong for the city to dispose of that for being developed. Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Bond, just so I'm clear and I'm not misreading you.
Okay.
There is no discussion whatsoever of selling off any of the MR that you're pointing to here. None.
Yes. Yes,
So
I'm
that-
aware of that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not even on the table, and that's definitely, because I recall that meeting.
Right,
It was
good.
unanimously defeated.
Yes.
Because we felt that the public were utilizing that green space.
Right, yeah.
Right? So it was well utilized, well established. So I can't speak for future councils. I guess there could be a decision down the road, but I doubt it very much.
Okay.
We're just really focused in on that strip.
Yep. And like I say, I just wanted it on the record that I'm opposed to the south end of the deal. And, I just hope this isn't a step towards that type thing, okay?
Certainly no discussions at all have happened at this level.
Okay.
Nothing. No plans.
Okay.
Unless I'm mistaken, Stephen.
Your Worship,
Sorry,
no, I
Your
don't
Worship.
believe you're mistaken. One thing I just wanted to provide for clarification, my comments about pathways earlier with respect to the downtown plan, what I was trying to indicate is that the downtown plan indicated that there should be an east-west pathway along the future connection of Railway Avenue as it went from the west side of the tracks across to Tower Lane Drive, which has now been put in place, and that there are pathway connections meant to be along Nose Creek in behind Tower Lane Mall, but there was not a specific call for a pathway in the downtown plan along this narrow strip, which is on the west side of Tower Lane Drive.
And
And when you think about it in terms of the width that we would typically want for regional pathway at 2.5 plus 1 meter of maintenance on either side, it's almost too narrow to do that. It's very tight.
And that was made perfectly clear to members of council, for sure. Totally understand it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate you coming forward.
For the third and final time, is there anyone who would like to speak against the bylaw number B39 2016? Okay, there being none, I will turn it back over to Stephen.
Thank you, Your Worship. Much like the bylaw I brought forward a few moments ago, with bylaw B39, there are 3 alternatives for council. The first alternative is to give 3 readings to the bylaw. The bylaw would do 2 things. It would remove the municipal reserve designation from the subject parcel, which is that narrow strip that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. It would also provide that subject parcel with the land use district of the M3 district, which is the downtown core mixed use district. And again, it is just that narrow strip between Railway and down towards the southern extent where there is a stormwater management overland drainage right of way. The second alternative is to table bylaw B39 2016. Council would do this if they wanted more information before giving readings. And the third alternative is to defeat bylaw during one of the readings. Administration recommends alternative 1, that council give 3 readings to bylaw B39 2016 for the reasons presented earlier this evening. I welcome any questions of council.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Any questions from the council? Council Hunter?
Through the chair, so for sake of argument, if it was not disposed of and put as an M3, access to that parcel, there would have to be an access agreement over that, and that would be pretty much sanitize it anyways, correct?
Through the chair, to address the question of Councillor Hunter, that's correct. There would be probably 2 options for access. One would be north on the northern boundary with Railway Avenue. The other would be to see if the city would be willing to enter into a agreement to allow access over that for the purpose of developing that parcel, and that would largely sterilize the purposes for municipal reserve.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Any other further questions? All right. I will now like to close a public hearing for bylaw B39 2016. Councillor Coulson?
Thank you, Your Worship. At this time, I'd like to move first reading of bylaw B39 2016.
All those in favor? And it's unanimous. Councillor Hunter?
I'd like to move second reading, bylaw B39 2016.
All those in favor? And it's unanimous. Deputy Mayor Haig?
Thank you, Worship. This time I'd like to request permission for third reading of the bylaw.
All those in favor? And it's unanimous. And Councillor Chapman?
Thank you, Worship. I would like to move third reading of bylaw B39 2016.
All those in favor? And it's unanimous. Thanks, Stephen.
There is no financial position, there is no business arising. We're on 4.14.1, and for introductions, ask for Deputy Mayor Haig.
Okay, we are on 14.1 and introduction, Deputy Mayor Haig.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to invite Chris McIsaac, who's sitting at the back, up front, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, Mayor Brown, members of council. When I'm on the agenda, you know it's coming to an end. So tonight you may be thinking, oh no, deja vu, we've seen this presentation before, and you're quite correct. This is a revised presentation that was provided to council in June, and why it's been revised we'll get into. We're fortunate in Trans in the sense that we have two major capital grant programs available to us, both administered by Alberta Transportation. One is a provincial program, well known throughout Alberta. It's called Green Trip. It's been around for a number of years now, and we've had the opportunity to make 2 calls for projects over the past 5 years. Now that program itself will be coming to an end, unfortunately. This will be the final call for projects under the Green Trip banner. And what it really means for us is it's an opportunity to leverage that remaining $130 million available to the Calgary region. So we have done so. We have put our submission into the Calgary Regional Partnership on July the 12th, and I'll give you a few of those details in upcoming slides. The second program is the Public Transit Infrastructure Fund. This is a federal program administered by the province. And how they've rolled this project or this program out is really based on ridership at an agency level. So they've taken the ridership within a province, they've divided that in terms of how the ridership plays out in municipalities in that project, and then allocated the funding based on that formula. So for Airdrie, that means there has been $354,000 available to leverage for eligible capital programs. So why am I here tonight? Why do I give this presentation a second time? Well, the Green Trip criteria has been expanded. Alberta Transportation looked at the criteria for the Public Transit Infrastructure Fund and decided we will align the Green Trip criteria with PTIF. That's great news for us in the sense that now we have more projects that would be deemed eligible under Green Trip. But what happened is the motion that was approved by council in June, has now changed. We have new projects that were not on the Green Trip list that were on the PTIF list. The PTIF list has changed because now there's more money available to us because we're moving some of that money over to Green Trip. So here's what the new projects look like. For fleet, it's not a huge change in terms of the dollar value, but with Green Trip now being part of the PTIF criteria, one of the projects that was identified was bus rehabilitation. So taking the existing fleet procured in 2010 and modernizing it, giving it the most fuel efficient, emissions efficient engine and powertrain available on the market. I put it that way because I have to acknowledge the fact that what we're doing is taking an existing asset, increasing the life of that asset, and also making it more environmentally friendly, reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. So that's really the only addition on the fleet side. We're not changing the number of buses that we put in our original Green Trip request. It's just piggybacking on PTIF and saying it's now Green Trip eligible. We're going to go after those 2/3 of the funding through Green Trip and then the remaining portion for PTIF. For transit facilities, the major 3 facilities identified to council in June remain unchanged. What has been added are additional transit zones to improve accessibility, safety at our transit zones for boarding and unloading customers, and also a focus on creating transit zones for multimodal transportation, so encouraging people to bike to a transit zone, so placing bike racks, possibly bike lockers in some locations at transit zones. Where we see a little more of the movement in terms of the dollar value in the projects is on the amenities side. So we've identified a number of new technologies. I would say they're cutting-edge emerging technologies in our industry to improve, again, accessibility, remove barriers of using public transit, and also looking at our current fee structures, our user fees, and is there an opportunity for us to look at a different model, generate new user fees, encourage more participation from our business community. And that was one piece that was identified in our transit master plan, and what we've seen through the changes to Green Trip to align with PTIF. Now there's an opportunity for us to grant fund a strategy that looks solely at our revenue streams and how we can further increase our revenues. So the dollar value overall for Green Trip through their contribution will increase to just under $6 million. In terms of the process for council, that again will remain unchanged from what was presented in June. Any projects that are approved in principle tonight by council will continue to go through the budgeting process, so you'll have that opportunity on an annual basis to review each and every project and determine whether or not it meets your vision for the community and the direction, the strategic direction for transit services. So we will not be changing that process whatsoever. Council will have final say on any of the projects. The alternatives this evening, number one, is to look at what was presented tonight and confirm those projects. We'll leverage up to just under $6 million from the Green Trip Fund, and we will leverage all of the dollars available to us from PTF, $354,000. Alternative number two is to not proceed with the revised project list. We'll maintain what was approved by council at the meeting of June the 20th, and we will continue to leverage all those dollars available from PTIF. Recommendation for council tonight is to endorse the revised Green Trip and PTIF projects to be submitted to Alberta Transportation and the Calgary Regional Partnership with up to $5,995,743 leverage from Green Trip and $354,000 from PTIF. The project list looks like purchase of up to 11 regional buses, purchase of up to 3 local buses, completion of phase 2 of the South Transit Terminal, implementation of transit priority measures, mobile ticketing, real-time service alerts, and automated vehicle announcements. The bus rehabilitation program specific to our regional fleet procured in 2010, investment in safe and accessible transit zones, and finally, completion of a user fee and revenue strategy. With that, I ask if there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Is there any questions from the council? Councillor Hunter?
Just point of clarification that when it says it's going to Alberta Transportation and the CRP, that is a condition of, correct?
Through
Can't
the
go to
chair.
one without the other, right?
Through the chair, that is correct. It is a requirement that we provide a endorsement through council that is then provided to the Calgary Regional Partnership as part of our Green Trip application, and also to Alberta Transportation as the requirements for the Public Transit Infrastructure Fund.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Hank.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my motion will be to provide you the lever that you can leverage away, Mr. McIsaac, so that I would move to endorse the revised Green Trip and public transit infrastructure proposed project lists.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. Now, moving on to item 15, correspondence. Sharon?
Your Worship, members of council, you have a number of pieces of correspondence this evening. The first is a proclamation request from Kids Cancer Care Foundation, and they're looking to have the month of September proclaimed as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and they're asking that City Hall be illuminated in gold lights on September 1st. Your second piece of correspondence is a proclamation request for Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, and this is to a proclamation for September 1st to 30th, and council will recall they have made this particular proclamation in the past few years. The next piece is 2 pieces of correspondence from Mr. K. White, and he's asking for 2 things. One is to consider a train service to and from Calgary, and the second piece is to consider creating an outdoor lake amenity concept at Chinook Winds Park for residents of Airdrie. 15.4 is asking council to ratify the appointment of Ms. Shauna Quinn as the chairperson for the 2020 Alberta Winter Games. And your last piece of correspondence is from the Boys and Girls Club asking permission to use the decommissioned Main Street Fire Hall for their annual Air Scares event. And I'm available for questions.
For item 15.1, can I please have a motion from Councillor Hunter?
So I would like to make a motion that we proclaim September 2016 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month and illuminate City Hall in gold lights on September 1st in support of it.
For item, all those in favor? It's unanimous. For item 15.2, I would like a motion from Councillor Berlick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would like to make the motion to proclaim September 1st to 30th, 2016 as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month in Airdrie.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. Mayor Brown would like to make a comment on next item.
Thank you. So 15.3, Sharon, will we be forwarding those letters on to Parks? Wait a second. I'm ahead of myself. No, I'm not. So Mr. White's letters to Parks, and I'm sure, as Chris has heard from me 100 times, I'd love to have a GO train in Airdrie here. Just want to make certain if we do file these letters for correspondence that they will be going on to the various departments for response.
Absolutely, Your Worship. We will make sure that occurs.
So you need a motion from Councillor Colson.
On item 15.3, can I please have a motion from Councillor Colson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Motion to file the correspondence.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. On 15.4, can I please have a motion from Councillor Burley?
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to make a motion that we ratify the letter to Ms. Shauna Quinn offering her the position of chairperson for the 2020 Alberta Winter Games.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. And on 15.5, can I please have a motion from Councillor Chapman?
Your Worship, before I make this motion, it's not going to be that simple. I have a couple questions of the decommissioned fire hall. Is it available? Would there be any issues with the Boys and Girls Club using it? Because I know with it being out of town last year, it was tough for the kids to get there to volunteer and everything. I would love to see that the haunted house back in Airdrie, especially downtown.
Through the chair, we actually had a meeting today. Internal staff looked at the site, and I think it's very feasible to allow the boys and girls to host their event there this year.
Thank you. With hearing that from staff, Your Worship, I would be more than happy to make the motion that we allow the Boys and Girls Club to use the decommissioned fire hall for the Air Scares event this year.
All those in favor? It's unanimous. And now for item 16, board and member reports. Councillor Coulson.
Nothing at this time.
Councillor Burley.
Yes, sure. There is one item, Your Worship. A motion for the land sale of a portion of Lot 7, MR Block 2, Plan 8110225 for the value determined by professional appraisal plus the cost of conducting the appraisal to a prospective purchaser.
It's only one motion.
Yes. All those in favor?
All those in favor? It's unanimous.
And that's it, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor Heng.
Thank you, Your Worship. On the Saturday before last, I had the opportunity to attend the annual Show and Shine, where there was a little bit of sunshine on the Saturday, and was able to, in the place of the mayor, to choose the Mayor's Choice a vehicle for that event, and I picked a 1965 Pontiac Parisienne, and I used to have as my first car my dad's first new car, which was a 1966 Pontiac Parisienne, and this one is owned and maintained and polished and shined by, in fact, one of our own members in Airdrie as well too. So that was my pleasure to be able to do that.
Councillor Hunter?
Nope.
Councillor Bellick?
Not at this time.
And Councillor Chapman?
Well, you know I'm not going to let you get off that easy. I'd like to say on behalf of my council colleagues and everybody else, great job tonight. It's been fantastic. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
What would you like to say?
Just thank you for giving me this opportunity.
That's it. A woman with that many words like you. Come on. You got an audience. Start talking.
Well, it's a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I've had the great pleasure of meeting all of you and working on this team. Hopefully, when I'm older, I will remember this experience, and it will help influence on my education and what I want to be when I grow up.
I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so.
Excuse me,
This
Worship.
girl's going to be something special. Yes, sorry.
I did have one more thing to add. I forgot about.
Yes,
if
go
I
ahead,
could.
Councillor Burley, please.
A Miracle Treat Day on this past Thursday. It was amazing. The volunteers and the city residents that came out to support it was incredible. The East Side location was backed up, probably 35 orders at a time on their screen, and those kids were making blizzards as fast as they could. It was just amazing. It was a blast. And Councillor Coulson was there with me, and we had a great time.
If I could just add, Your Worship, they made me dump those blizzards upside down, and there's nothing more intimidating than hoping, please don't follow, please don't follow, please don't follow.
I always had my mouth at the bottom of it when I did it, just in case. A couple of things. So when we were out and about today, we welcomed back Ian Amon. I recognized him earlier. He ran across Alberta for mental health. He raised, I think he's in the thousands of dollars. He's over $6,000 for his initiative for Canadian mental health and bringing awareness. But his goal was, if I'm quoting him correctly, was to, we're not here just to be here. We're here to reach further and go farther and push ourselves harder. And that was a great message to receive today from a guy who just ran across Alberta. He was in a lot of pain, he had a lot of sores, but he said the experience was phenomenal, and he got to meet and really received a lot of personal, intimate stories from a lot of people that he was touched by on the route. Him and his wife and his son rode the whole way on a bicycle with his dad, which is a kind of a cool memory for them. So we really want to thank them and congratulate them on his success. The last thing was we went over to a house that was built for these beautiful young girls, Cadence and Addison, and they bought a bungalow and they refurbished the bungalow, and it was about $300,000 plus of renovations that were donated. Tradespeople donated, community members donated their time, the products, the roofing, the siding, new windows. The gentleman actually bought the house to sell it back to them after all these improvements were done because the family couldn't afford it. It's a single mom. It has an elevator built into it. Unfortunately, we were all invited to go, but we had our council meeting tonight. They had their grand opening tonight. But I would encourage everybody to go look on the Airdrie Angels site to see what that's all about. And the community is just amazing. And I guess it goes, I'm saying this really to, there's so much economic turmoil out there, and to see the continued generosity from people who are seriously hurting. And I'm talking about the building industry right now, and seeing these guys that are putting down flooring and siding, and yeah, they have time to do it because their businesses are off, and they're out there giving and giving and giving, and it's just another testament to the incredible generosity that lives and breathes in our community. And I will also add there was people coming in from Calgary as well, and other trades people from the surrounding communities. So it's not just Airdrie experience, it's an Albertan experience. When you're down and out, you help somebody else, and that's really quite an incredible thing. So just wanted to recognize them. And again, I want to thank this young lady. I know it's already been said by Councillor Chapman. When you get to vote for Prime Minister, she's already told me that's her goal. She speaks fluent Spanish, if you didn't know, fluent Spanish. She's going to get her French degree. I've encouraged her because she's going to need that to be Prime Minister. But I can tell you, and you can see when I said to her, there's more people to talk to. It just goes off in her head. She's very comfortable, very confident, and she was very convincing, and I'm very proud of her for the job she's done. She says she's in grade 5. I think she's in grade 10. We're going to check her ID outside. Security, if you could meet me at the front door. Yes, you, sir, right there. Please take her name and number. We'll figure that out. But I want to thank your parents as well for allowing you to submit and be part of this experience. It was phenomenal getting to know you, and I'm looking forward to watching you go and take over the world in a few years. And with that,
Thank you very much.
so now you go to Mr. Schultz here for council follow-up. He never gives us anything anyway, so.
Okay. Can I please have the council follow up for Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do give you within your package council follow-up list, so if you have any questions, I'm available for answers.
There being none, the meeting's adjourned.
Excellent. That girl. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's do a group picture at the front, you guys. Oh, right. Reminder to council, we have a couple of in-camera items to finish with. And I'd like to ask all members of council to come forward with Pauline and Clay, please, and get a picture with the mayor for a day. Oh, sure.